Hello, my brothers and sisters in Christ. This is Jim Dorff, the resident bishop of the San Antonio Episcopal area. That area includes the Rio Grande Annual Conference and the Southwest Texas Annual Conference. Soon to be one conference, the Rio Texas Conference, effective January 1, 2015. I want to share with you some very difficult, challenging, and yet very rewarding work that I have been involved with along with the cabinet, and that is having to do with how we are going to realign and reconfigure the districts that will make up the Rio Texas Annual Conference beginning January 1st. You will remember that on February the 8th, there was a called session of both of the annual conferences. At that called session, a plan was approved by which the new conference would organize and structure itself. As a part of that structure, the conferences needed to determine how many districts would be in the Rio Texas Conference. The proposal coming from the Unification and Implementation team was to have 7 districts in the new conference. That recommendation was approved by both annual conferences. 7 districts in the Rio Texas Conference, January 1st. Currently, the Rio Grande Annual Conference has 3 districts. The Southwest Texas Annual Conference has 7. Obviously, we currently have 10 districts. We needed to find a way to make that 10 districts into 7 and do it in a way that it makes missional sense for who we are and what we're trying to do in making disciples of Jesus Christ for the transformation of the world in this area that God has entrusted to us. I want to share with you some information having to do with how we will do this, have done this task. The discipline gives the annual conferences the authority to set the number of districts. The discipline then gives the bishop, in consultation with the cabinet, the authority to set the boundaries of the districts. In other words, which churches are in which districts. Both annual conferences have been in the process of major areas of assessment of our work, how we go about it, how we do it. And as we begin to move into this one new annual conference, the cabinet has spent a number of hours. We've spent hours talking about not just which churches should be in which districts, but a more important issue, and that is, what can we do in configuring the districts that is going to help those districts have a sense of identity, have a sense of purpose, have a common sense of mission, and how can we, by virtue of which churches are in which districts, how can we help really move more into saturating the mission field in that particular geographical area to reach more people for Jesus Christ. Specifically, how do we reach the people who are not currently in our churches? And how can we best organize ourselves as districts to do that work? A huge piece of the plan that was approved on February 8th had to do with an understanding that a great deal of the direct missional work of reaching people for Christ is going to be done not only at the local church level, but through the district. The district mission strategy teams are going to be a huge factor in determining how the churches and the districts are going to work together, how new work will be started, how new communities of faith will be developed. How all of that happens is going to be done through the districts with the assistance of the annual conference. Therefore, this issue of how these districts are configured has been an extremely important and sacred task for us. We have taken this task very seriously. We shall continue to do so, but I want to share with you where we are and the decisions that we have made that will go into effect January 1st. First, let me say to you that we talked about a number of factors that were significant in the formation of these districts. There were practical matters. We wanted to make sure that there was some affinity between churches in the districts. In addition to that, we wanted to do all that we could to allow there to be, in the midst of affinity, also significant diversity. In addition to that, we wanted to realize that there are demographic issues. How do people seem to cluster in specific geographic areas of the conference? What kind of transportation outlets are there? What are the kinds of media markets that are available that people take advantage of in specific districts and specific regions of the conference? We looked at all those kinds of practical matters, but frankly, what we really began to look at with the utmost seriousness is what can we do in the configuration of these districts that we believe can give us the best opportunity to create new congregations, to develop new ministries, to reach new people. One of the most important ways then we began to look at is to say, okay, what are the specific emerging areas of energy and vitality that are across the bounds of what is currently the Southwest Texas Conference? Then we began to look at those and we said, of course, the Rio Grande Valley, a tremendous mission field. We looked at the I-35 corridor, tremendous growing mission field. We began to look then at all of the work that is happening in the Coastal Bend area. Excuse me. As you can tell, this work has taken its toll on my throat. No, I'm just kidding. I've got lung congestion, and forgive me for my voice. We began to look at all of the work that's being done through the Eagle Ford Shale along the Gulf Coast. We also began to look then at the emerging growth that's taking place across Interstate 10 from San Antonio to Houston. In addition to that, we looked at the growth that is anticipated along the tollway 130 east of Austin, going north onto the northern boundary of our annual conferences. In addition to that, we began to look, of course, at the Austin area, the continuing growth to the north and to the west. In addition to that, we realized that along that I-35 corridor, that we've had just the two districts, the San Antonio district, the Austin district, and the central district of the Rio Grande Conference, and that perhaps we would be well advised to look at finding ways to develop a third district presence along that corridor to provide more opportunity for more energy and more opportunity for growth through the area between Austin and San Antonio. Along with that, we looked at, of course, at West Texas in the former San Angelo Northwest districts, and that area in and of itself, with the Klein Shale oil and gas development that is taking place, is also finding growth and new vitality. And so you take all of these identified areas and say, what can we do to maximize our attention to our existing churches all across both annual conferences, and that will be a part of the new Rio Texas Conference. But at the same time, how do we seek to find ways to be able to bring special attention to bear on these specific areas of new energy, new vitality, and new mission fields? Those have been the kinds of things that have guided our work, that have guided our thoughts and reflections. We have not thought so much about individual churches, although certainly those are important. But the issue is not so much the individual churches, but how we can best configure ourselves to do new work for new people. So let me tell you what we've come to. I'll make this as simple as possible. You'll be able to get a lot of the details on the website about which churches are to be in which districts and what the district boundaries will be. You will see many of those over my shoulder as I continue. But let me say to you this. We have the 7 districts. Many of the districts will be somewhat familiar to those in the Southwest Texas Conference and what they've been before, and familiar to many in the Rio Grande Conference from the existing 3 districts, but there have been some significant changes, and we want to let you know about those. First of all, let me say to you that you will notice that the Southern District of the Rio Grande Conference and the McAllen District does not go as far north as it used to. You will notice that the Corpus Christi District, a part of the Southern District of Rio Grande, goes farther west than it used to, and it goes farther north. That is to allow one district to have all of the coastal bend area so that it can concentrate fully in that area. In addition, you will notice that the old Victoria District of the Southwest Texas Conference reaches much farther north and much farther west than it did before. The tollway 130 will be a part of what was the old Victoria District in the Southwest Texas Conference, and that is because we believe that that district will be able to provide new energy, focused energy upon the growth that is taking place up in that area, as well as that I-10 corridor. In addition to that, you will notice that the old Austin District goes farther north and a little bit farther west, but not as far east. That is to allow that district to concentrate its focus and its work in Austin and the area to the north and to the west. You will notice that the old Kerrville District does not go as far north. It does come back farther to the east. And that is because that district will now include a part of the I-35 corridor in its work so that it can concentrate its work in a more east-west fashion and can concentrate that work in developing new ministries, new churches, new communities of faith along that I-35 corridor, while Austin and San Antonio concentrate in those specific areas. The San Antonio area will be similar to what it has been. It will go a little farther south. It will not go as far to the east. And it is our hope and prayer that God will continue to use the work that's done in the old San Antonio and Central districts to develop the great work that needs to be done in reaching people in the immediate San Antonio area and to the south. The West Texas area, San Angelo, remains pretty much as it is, although it goes across the northern corridor of that district. It goes a little farther to the east. And that district is so large geographically that it has its own specific life and work. And again, with the Klein Shale oil and gas, there's a lot of work that needs to be done there. So let me say to you that is a general outline of the districts. Let me get into some of the specifics, not of the districts, but the process. You can get the specifics of the district, as I said, off the website. Moving from 2 conferences to 1, as you all know, can get very complicated very quickly. It's the same thing with the moving the districts from 10 to 7. In order to make this as simple as possible, we wanted to go ahead and get out to you the configuration of the new districts, but these new districts will not take full effect until January 1 of 15, when the Rio Grande and Southwest Texas conferences both go away and we become Rio, Texas. The reason for that is that, as you all know, we have specific matters related to each of the districts in both conferences. We have district committees on ministries, we have district boards of trustees, we have various other district groupings that would be very difficult to try and change in the middle of the year, not to mention the whole issue of district budgets. So consequently, the current leadership in place that has been previously elected in all 10 of the districts will remain the same until January 1 of 15. However, in the fall of this coming fall, each district, the new districts, each of the 7 districts will hold district conferences, and at that time they will elect the leadership, the mission strategy teams, the trustees, the district superintendency committees, adopt a budget, all the things that districts need to do for district life That will be done by the new districts in the fall so that when January 1 comes, they can be ready to go and ready to be in mission and ministry. Until that time, the current districts will continue to exist as is. And let me tell you just a bit about how that's going to work. Obviously, we have 10 districts. I'm going to appoint 7 district superintendents. That means that some folk are going to have to double up, and that's okay. It's for a short period of time, and I believe that we can work through this and do it in a good shape and good fashion without losing any momentum for ministry. So therefore, let me tell you what my appointments will be for the 7 districts beginning July 1 to the Southern District of the Rio Grande Conference and the McAllen District of the Southwest Texas Annual Conference. I shall be appointing Laura Merrill to serve as the superintendent of those 2 districts. In the San Antonio District, I shall be appointing Carl Rolfs to serve as the superintendent of the San Antonio District and the Central District of the Rio Grande Annual Conference. I shall be appointing Herario Valverde to be the superintendent of the Corpus Christi District. I shall be appointing Robert Lopez to serve as the superintendent of the Victoria District. I shall be appointing Teresa Welburn to serve as the superintendent of the Austin District, and I shall be appointing Bill Henderson to serve as the superintendent of the Kerrville District, and I shall be appointing Steve Purdy to serve as the superintendent of the San Angelo District and the Northwest District of the Rio Grande Conference. Those are the 7 superintendents who will be serving beginning July 1. They will serve those 10 districts until January 1 of 15. At that time, then, they will transition over into serving just the 7 districts of the Rio Texas Conference. Let me say 2 things further. One of the things that was clear to us in seeking to configure these districts in a missional way is that we also needed to make it clear to ourselves and to others that what we're about here is something different than what we've been doing. Pray to God that who we are is different, what we've done is different, and what we will do is different by God's grace. I hope and pray that as we begin to look at ourselves differently, it's a challenge. It is a real challenge to look at things, to understand things, and to do things differently. But that is our challenge. It's the one God has given us. There won't be a Rio Grande or a Southwest Texas Conference. There will be a Rio Texas. And who is that? And what does that conference do? And how does it do it? In order to help us begin to shape a new identity, it became important to us as a cabinet and me as the bishop to realize that if we're going to have 7 districts, we needed to have 7 new identities. And so we're going to be having new names for our districts. And I know that's just as a symbolic and a kind of a token gesture in many ways, but it's one thing that we can do to help us begin to look at each other differently and look at ourselves differently, and as it's something that is new, something that is fresh. And therefore, let me tell you the names of the districts, the 7 districts that we have chosen. Let me also say to you that a name is a name, but a name does represent something to us. These are the names that we put forward and that we intend to begin life in the 7 districts in the Rio Texas Conference. In the South, clearly, the South is identified with the Rio Grande Valley, and therefore it's relatively simple to understand that rather than identifying that district with one city, it needs to identify with the region. And therefore, the southern part, the former Southern District, the former McAllen District, will become El Valle, the Valley. It will be the El Valle District of the Rio Texas Conference. Up along the coast, clearly, Corpus Christi is a great city with great churches and great mission work going on, but our work extends far beyond the boundaries of the city. And so it doesn't take rocket science to determine that really that area, that district, needs to be called the Coastal Bend District. So in the Rio Texas Conference, that will be the Coastal Bend District. Moving on up, what formerly the Victoria District has been reconfigured significantly. Victoria is in the very southern part of that district, nowhere near the center anymore. That district goes farther up, and that area has become known to many people in the area as the Crossroads area. And that area, that district then, will become the Crossroads District. As we move on over to the west, Austin, clearly that Austin has its own identity, it has its own understanding and flavor of its mission and purpose, but that district goes well beyond just the city of Austin. But Austin has identified itself in one very clear and specific way, and that it is the capital of Texas. So we feel that naming the what formerly was the Austin district as the capital district would be most appropriate and descriptive. Moving over to formerly what was the Kerrville district in the Southwest Texas Conference, that area really embraces the hill country. And that is descriptive of the region in which it's going to be serving primarily. And so that will become the Hill Country District. As we move on forward back out then to the San Angelo area and the Northwest District area, that area really needs to be called what it is, and that is, for us, it's west. It's the West District for us. And that encompasses a huge geographic area, and it includes all kinds of diverse resources and opportunities for ministry. And for us in the Rio Texas Conference, it's west. And the new name of the old San Angelo Northwest districts will be the West District. In San Antonio, again, the heart and soul of the district is in San Antonio, but in addition to that, you have to also realize it extends far beyond that and farther. In looking at what is a descriptive name that will reflect who we are in this area and who this area is to itself, Las Misiones seem to be the natural choice. Las Misiones will be the name of what was the old Central and the old San Antonio districts. Let me stop at this point and say one further word that is on the minds and hearts of many people, particularly in the Rio Grande Conference. How are the churches outside the geographic bounds of the Southwest Texas Conference going to be cared for in the Rio Texas Conference, and how will they be related to districts? All of the churches in the New Mexico Conference will become a part of the New Mexico Conference by June of this year. All but one of the churches, our Rio Grande churches in the Northwest Texas Conference, will be a part of the Northwest Texas Conference by June of this year. And I want to express my personal gratitude to Bishop Earl Bledsoe and to the cabinets and the people of the Northwest Texas and the New Mexico Conference for seeing the wisdom into joyfully receiving our Rio Grande Conference churches as great gifts to them that will enhance their mission and ministry going forward. So the Northwest District of the Rio Grande Conference, there's only one church left. That church will be related, it's in Lubbock, and it will be related to the San Angelo District, or after January 1st, the West District. We do have a congregation or two in the Central Texas Conference. Those churches after January 1st will be related to the Capital District. We will not have any churches, I don't believe, in the North Texas Conference after June. If we do, that church or those churches will be related to the Capital District after January 1st. We will have 2 or 3 churches in the Houston area that will still be a part of the Rio Texas Conference in June and January. Those churches remaining, those churches will be related to the Crossroads District as they continue in their mission and ministry. So we feel like we have been able to relate those churches, those very few churches that will be left on January 1st, that are not with the conferences within which they reside, that we will be able to accommodate them in their ministry and be supportive of them and give them assistance and help as best we can during this period. I know this has been a long conversation. It's much longer than I intended it to be, but this is a relatively complicated subject. I wanted to give you all an idea behind what we've done and how we've done it. Furthermore, I want to let you know that all of the information, the detailed information, is available on the conference website. I invite you to go there, look this over more closely, see where your congregation fits. If you find any discrepancies in the information that's provided there, either in the district maps or in the listing of the churches that are in the districts, please contact your current district superintendent. We have a lot of churches. We believe we've got everybody cared for and we've got a place for everybody. But sometimes we do have clerical errors. And so I want to ask you to please help us in that way if you see any mistakes in any of the materials that you see. One last thing, I want to thank Bill Henderson, our superintendent in the Kerrville district. He has led a committee of superintendents that have been working on this project for many months. I want to thank him personally for his leadership of that committee, but Bill also did a tremendous amount of work in computerizing all these models. My brothers and sisters, I want to tell you, we looked at over 10 different possible configurations, and Bill was very gracious in helping us to visualize all of those. So I want to express my appreciation to him specifically. I pray that as we continue to move ahead, I believe, I'm excited about the way this new district configuration has come about. I believe it will help us. It allows us to keep our current parsonages and our current offices, at least for the time being. And if in the future the district mission strategy teams determine that changes in locations need to be made for the superintendent or their offices, that can be done at a later time. This helps us facilitate our work, and I truly believe that it's going to give us some new energy and new vitality as we move into God's future. My brothers and sisters, it's not a perfect plan, but I believe it's a good one. And it's where we can start, and we will continue to do what we've been doing, and that is to pray that God would bless us and lead us into God's future, and that God will take us where we need to go. So God bless you. Thank you for being patient and tolerant with me as I have tried to explain this process and these decisions to you. And God bless the Rio Texas Conference.